that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling Podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. Well, seeing how we're pulling Category 6A, the most powerful twisted pair in the world, you gotta ask yourself this one question. Did I pull 295 or 300 feet? Well, do you feel lucky? Do you, punk? What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That can only mean one thing. After Hours Live with Chuck Bowser, RCDD, where you get to ask your favorite questions on cabling installation, certification, design, project management, even career path questions. Today's After Hours Live questions predominantly deal with career path questions. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So if you know me pretty well. You know the very first thing I always start off with is, what are you drinking? Today, this is an after hours show, so you can be drinking anything you want. Chuck is drinking Zevia Cola tonight. Zevia Cola. I know it looks like water, but that's the beautiful thing about Zevia soda. No sugar, no caffeine, clear, but it tastes like Coca-Cola. So tell us in the chat box, what are you drinking tonight? What are you drinking tonight? Tell us in the chat box. Also, before we get too much further along, this show's free and is always be provided for free. So if you find value in this content, would you please scan that QR code right there? Then go to our Linktree account, buy me a cup of coffee. You can schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me after hours, of course. And you can also get access to all of our content, the videos, the audios, all that other fun stuff, right? So don't forget that. So today's acronym challenge, it's the next thing I always do. Today's acronym challenge deals with today's subject matter. The acronym for this today is RCDD. RCDD. What does RCDD stand for? Put your answer in the chat box. What does RCDD stand for? I'll give you guys a few seconds. I'll give you a hint. It is a certification. It's a certification that was created by and is managed by Bixie, Building Industry Consulting Services International. So they made that certification and they are managing that certification. Many people in the low voltage industry want to get their RCDD, but what does it stand for? Still waiting for the correct answer. Checking TikTok. Nobody on TikTok has answered yet. Check the chat box here. Nobody here has actually answered it correct yet. I'll give you a few more seconds. It's a highly desirable. Getting this certification can increase your learning potential, increase your money-making potential. Raise your hand if you don't want to make more money. Nope, nobody's raising their hands. RCDD stands for, ready for this? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. RCDD. That's what it stands for. There you go. So now you know the rest of the story. Hey, did you catch last week's show? Last week's show, I talked to a couple people from the POE Consortium. Now, the POE Consortium is a group of manufacturers and designers who are trying to standardize the POE industry. And they're trying to do that through training and certification and language, like using the right kind of terms, the right kind of acronyms. And they're also trying to help make us, the POE, better in the future. So make sure you listen to that show, find out how they're improving the POE side of the low voltage industry. And also make sure you pay attention to how you can join them and be a part of that process. How exciting is that? To be at the ground level, getting into something. That's cool. Next week's show is going to be pretty cool as well. Next week's show, we're talking about nanofiber. What is nanofiber? We're going to talk to the manufacturer. We're also going to talk to, hey, Big Daddy. We're also going to talk to a couple experts like Lee Renfro and a couple other people about the considerations you need to think about when you're doing the design and installation of that nanofiber. That should be a really, really cool show. Really cool show. Let me click over to the chat box. So let me see. Forrest is having tea. What question for you, Forrest? What is your favorite kind of tea? What's your favorite kind of tea? I'm a tea drinker myself. I'm a Earl Grey kind of a guy, but I do like some other stuff as well. And let me ask you this: do you use a tea bag, or do you use one of the other? Like I put mine in this little metal container, and then you dump that in the water, so you don't have to use the tea bag. It makes the tea taste so much better, right? Oh, so who's this? John is in the house. John is drinking Mountain Dew Live Wire. That must be a special kind of Mountain Dew. I'm not familiar with that one off the top of my head. Mini Mike's oh, there he goes. Registered Communications Distribution Designer. So there we go. He got it. Force also got it too. I forgot to check the chat box over here on this side of the house. So oh, look at this. This is exciting news. Michael is a technician in Canada, and he reached out to me to ask me about some RCDD stuff. You'll like tonight's show, Michael. He just submitted his RCDD application. That's going to be very cool. Very cool. So he's Michael's drinking Red Bull. Must have been long day. Right. Oh, Forrest answered my question about his tea. Right. He loves peppermint tea, but he uses his in the back. We grow our own peppermint here, and we make our own peppermint tea. So fresh peppermint tea. So let's get into the questions. I only have 3 questions today, but I have a feeling it's going to take up the entire show, maybe even longer than what the show is. So I got a message from it. I wish I'd written it down, but I forgot to. I think it was TikTok. Somebody asked me, how do I get into the low voltage industry? How do I get into the low voltage industry? So first off, I'm not going to assume that everybody knows what the low voltage industry is, right? Low voltage can mean lots of things. The funny thing is, if you try to look up low voltage in the code book, it doesn't really define what low voltage is. There's several definitions out there. One of them is anything below 1,000 volts AC. I've also heard below 600 volts AC. And I've also heard people say low voltage just basically means you don't need a license to install it. But the problem with that definition is, here in the US at least, there's a lot of states that are requiring you to have a permit and a license to install low voltage cabling. So you can't really use that one anymore. Here's the fact though. Low voltage cabling is used everywhere. It's used in residential applications. It's used in commercial applications. It's used in industrial applications. In your homes, right? You might have a wireless access point in your house. You might have cable going for your landline. You might have cable going for your computers and stuff like that. And also AV. In a commercial, you're going to have voice and data and AV, security, access control, fire alarm. Those all fit under the umbrella of low voltage. The fact of the matter is, a career in low voltage, it's in high demand right now. This is a great industry to be in because the world, through the pandemic, relied on us for communications, relied on us. And on top of that, we have a lot of new technology coming out that's just going to really help springboard us. Well, I already mentioned the POE, right? The power over Ethernet. There's also other stuff out there as well that you can do. Like there's the digital electricity. There is extended distances for POE, stuff like that. And security. It's a great time to be in this industry because a lot of stuff is changing. So the key to getting in the industry is, number one, getting yourself educated. Get yourself educated. So you can do this free, or you can do it if you have a little bit of money. Let's talk about free first. If you're doing it free, subscribe to Cable Installation and Maintenance Magazine and read it. Watch their webinars. Right? Go to the manufacturer's websites. Read through their stuff. There's lots of stuff. And matter of fact, a lot of them have summaries of the standards. So it's a great way to read the standards for free, I might add, for free, right? If you have a little bit of money, I'm talking to a person on TikTok who was wanting to learn stuff. And she'd asked, what are some opportunities for learning? There are learning programs out there that cost a little bit of money, and some of them are kind of cheap and some of them are kind of expensive. Let's just kind of go through just a few of those. So the first one is, for example, like the apprenticeship programs. Now, the IBEW has a great apprenticeship program. I know, Chuck, they're electricians. Yeah, I get it. But I don't have this harsh feeling towards electricians that other low voltage people do. I think we're just brothers from a different mother, right? We harass each other, but that's what brothers do. I do that with my brother all the time. So they have a great apprenticeship program. They also have a great JATC, the Joint Apprenticeship Training Council, Training Committee. I can't remember what the C stands for. If you know what the C stands for, tell me in the chat box, JATC. You can also go to your local community colleges. There's a lot of local community colleges that have adopted the Bixie Installer 1 program. The Installer 1. That used to be the old apprentice program, right? The old apprentice program. So you can actually pay to take that course. And then you'll come out certified as an Installer 1. Right? That just basically means you know the differences between shielded and unshielded cable. You know how to terminate. You know how to label. You've been taught some professionalism things, some safety things. I forgot to mention on the apprenticeship programs, I already talked about the IBEW, but there are other ones out there as well. There's a company called IEC. They have branches all over the U.S. IEC Chesapeake, IEC. Hey, Mason, thank you so much. He said he loves the videos. IEC Chesapeake, IEC Tampa. They have training programs where you can go in, you can learn the thing and come out. Some companies even also have apprenticeship programs. So your better companies do, at least, the ones that really, really understand. And then another way is to network with industry experts. You know what? Social media is just exploding. And there's a lot of low voltage people on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Connect with them, talk with them, ask them why they do certain things certain ways. Ask them to do educational type videos. There's a lot of benefit there. The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure, if you're going to get in low voltage after you get hired, you may be required to get some tools. Right? Now, here's the thing. You want to invest in quality tools, because quality tools, it's just a fact. They're going to last longer. They're going to perform better, and they offer you long-term savings. So buy the best tool that you can afford, right? So what are some of the tools you need to start off with right out of the way? You might need a pair of wire strippers. You can get the cable stripper ones from like Lowe's for like 10, 15 bucks. A pair of snips. Some people call them, what do they call that thing? Some people call them scissors, but they're not scissors. I can't remember. I'll think of the name. But most people call them snips, right? A set of screwdrivers, maybe a set of pliers. That's kind of all you really need to start off with. Maybe a hammer, because you need to tap on top of a hole. And then as you progress in your career, then you can invest in more and more tools. And then you're also going to want to invest in some safety equipment, right? So, for example, PPE, boots. That's going to cost you right there. Boots, man, those things are, a good set of boots are going to cost you $150, $200, sometimes even more, right? So make sure that you get a good set. Make sure you have a pair of gloves. Make sure you have some safety glasses, some ANSI rated safety glasses. Don't just go buy just the regular ones, right? Right. Kevlar Snips. That's good. That's a good suggestion. That's a suggestion on TikTok. My question is on the Kevlar Snips is, be careful with the copper. Now it says in TikTok that he's cut lots of copper with it over the years, but I've had a pair of Kevlar Snips one time that broke cutting copper. So, for those who may not know what Kevlar Snips are, they're snips that are designed specifically for cutting Kevlar. Kevlar is the material that you find inside a fiber optic cable. It's also known as it's Kevlar, but it's actually what do they call it? It's the name just escaped me. Oh, there's a technical name for it. Aramid yarn. There it is. Aramid yarn. Yeah. It's hard to cut aramid yarn with a regular pair of snips. So there you go. So those are some things you can do right off the gate to help you get into the low voltage industry. Now, the next question comes from Izzy on Instagram. And Izzy says, do we still terminate anaerobic fibers? And if so, what kit is used today? So anaerobic fiber. In the past, it used to be all different kinds of types of fiber optic connectors. You had the hot melts, the UV cure, the anaerobic, the mechanical, and now we have fusion splice-on connectors. We're down to basically just almost three types now. Just the anaerobic, the mechanical connectors, and the tube and the splice-on fibers, fusion splice-on connectors. Of those three, the least amount that you'll ever do is anaerobic fiber. So anaerobic means it's a two-part compound, right? So and you have to use both compounds in order for it to work. And then you got to scribe it and polish it. So the actual tools you're going to need are going to vary by the manufacturer of the connector. So if you know that you're going to be doing, AFL fiber, check with AFL. If you're going to be doing Leviton fiber, check with the Leviton. Panduit, check with Panduit, right? Because some of them might be specific. But there are some general tools that you're going to need when you're terminating anaerobic fiber. First one is going to be a good pair of wire strippers. Okay, good pair of wire strippers, right? So I got here a pair of No-Nicks and a Pillar Millers. I also have some other fiber strippers in my fiber case. I didn't feel like taking them out. So a good set of these. So you can strip that fiber. You're also going to need something to strip that jacket off of it as well. Now, the thing with the fiber strippers are, if you want to be really fast and efficient, you're going to want to use the Millers. But you're going to break a lot of fiber until you figure out the exact angle, because you got to kind of lean it back a little bit. And sometimes some of them have 2 holes, some of them have 3 holes. And that's for stripping different types of fiber. So make sure that you are using the right kind of fiber stripper. You're going to need some type of anaerobic adhesive. Now, again, the anaerobic adhesive, you put that on the fiber, and then there's a primer or an accelerator that you're going to put on top of that. And that causes that anaerobic adhesive to cure faster. Now, it'll cure by itself, but it takes like 45 minutes. And who has time to sit around for 45 minutes while the adhesive cures on the fiber optic connectors? So a lot of, typically you're going to be using some type of a primer. Now, the thing you got to be careful with is with the primer is they have expiration dates. They have expiration dates. So make sure you check the expiration date on that, right? So, and then you're going to need some kind of an inspection scope. The entry level one, I would say, is a 100 power scope, although in most of your training modules, they're going to recommend 200 power scopes. There's even one for there's a 400 power scope, right? I do a lot of cameras and need to learn to troubleshoot and IP them. What's good resources? Wow. That's a great question. I'm really a cable guy, not a troubleshooting. If you're talking about troubleshooting the cable or troubleshooting the actual camera, because those are two different experts there. And I can get somebody on next week to talk about troubleshooting cameras if that's what it is. You're going to need isopropyl alcohol. You're also going to need some type of a polishing puck. So polishing pucks come in 2 major sizes, right? So I'll hold this up so you can see them. So these are 2 polishing pucks. I'll hold them here so my TikTok peeps can see them. When you look at the circle in the very, very center, one of them is 1.25 millimeter. The other is 2.5 millimeter. So the 1.25 millimeter, the small one, you're going to use this one for LC connectors. Okay, for LC connectors. The 2.5 you're going to use for SC and ST connectors. Okay, so you're going to need a pair of those. Kevlar Snips is a good thing to have when you're doing fiber termination, and you might need a crimp tool as well, because some of the connectors you have to crimp the ring on the back of them, and then you're also going to want a good power meter and a light source, right? So, one thing I forgot to mention is a rubber pad, right? A rubber pad, and then you need to get lapping film for it. Okay, now lapping film, again, check with the manufacturer, but generally you're going to need 2 or 3 different types. I happen to have 2 with me right here today. And generally the way that it works is you start with your your darker color and go to your lighter color. Or is it the lighter color and go to the darker color? I can't remember. It's kind of like sanding a car, right? You'll start with the big one first and then go to the finer and then go to the finer. So you need to have these on, and these will get the kind that's going to fit right on your rubber polishing pad. And when you put the lapping film on, there's a shiny side and then there's a dull side. Put the shiny side towards the rubber polishing pad. Oh, but before you put it on the polishing pad, make sure you clean it off with alcohol. Okay. Now you can buy the single-use alcohol wipes, or you can get the bottles, and you can get some lint-free wipes, and then clean that off there as well. Okay, so you need that as well. Oh, and you're also going to need, if you're doing polishing, you're going to need some type of a scribe, right? A scribe to scribe that fiber connector, to do that as well. And each one of these things, like the scribe runs 60, 70, 80 bucks. The polishing pucks, I think, are 25, 30 bucks a piece. Oh, and another thing you want to have is a black mat to work on, because you will break fiber, and you're going to want to make sure that you can easily identify where that fiber falls if it breaks. And with a black mat, that will be easy. Oh, speaking of breaking fiber, always have an approved scraps container. Do not use electrical tape rolled over backwards. Okay. So those are some common tools that you might need for terminating anaerobic fiber. You just got to find out which kind of connector you want to use and find out which ones they need, because that's too broad of a question, but you will find some similarities across all of those. Okay, the next questions. These are all RCDD questions. And the first one is, Chuck, what is the prerequisites for taking the RCDD exam? The RCDD exam. Now, what does that really mean? What did I do there? There it goes. So you have a couple different options. You have three options for as far as the requirements. The first option is to have 2 years of verifiable full-time experience and a current BICSI certification, like a BICSI Tech, BICSI RTPM, DC, or maybe even the OSP. That's one way to qualify for it. Number 2, 2 years of verifiable work experience and 2 years of completing higher education course. Well, what does that mean? That means, for example, 2 years of a 2-year degree in a related field, a STEM or trade school, or maybe even some industry-related programs or apprenticeships. And even sometimes even military training qualifies for that. Right? So, but with option 2, though, for that second side, that you're going to need some kind of evidence of higher education coursework. That means you're going to have the certificate, the diploma, right, or some type of bona fide documents. Option 3, and this is how I qualified for it: 5 years of verifiable work experience. Now, what do they mean by that? They mean, let me pull up my graphics so we can actually look at this together, because there's a whole list. Let me see, graphics. Graphics. There we go. Here's the list. So you have to show that you have experience in a minimum of 3 of these. Ed, the old tech guy's in the house. Hey, Ed. So, for example, I got to put on my glasses so I can read that, because these are my safety glasses. These are not reading glasses. I am not blind. So, for example, if you've ever been an ICT job foreman and a lead technician, and you're currently a project manager, there's your 3, right? If you've done a bill of materials, if you've done cabling distances for an estimate and stuff, right? If you've done that, and you've been a QA QC guy, and you've done building automation stuff, there's your 3 right there. So when you fill out that application for the RCDD, make sure that you, somewhere on that application, you identify at minimum 3 of these. I would identify every single one that way, because they will actually reach out and check your resources. So make sure that you look at those. Right? Make sure that you look out and qualify for all of those. So the next question I got is, how can I prepare for my RCDD exam? Well, the first thing I'm going to tell you is get a copy of the TDMM and read it. Read it, read it, read it. Now, it's a pretty big document, and I've heard to tell you right now, the first 2 chapters are going to scare the dickens out of you, but you need to read through it. So if you have the TDMM, come up with a reading plan. Pick a day or time or when you want to be done reading by. Figure out how many days that is, divide those days into the number of pages, and now you know how many pages you have to read per day to get to that goal. Now you better start your studying. Now, how much should you study? Now, everybody's different, right? You got people who are brand new to the industry, people who are like me, they got 40 plus years of experience. You have people who are really good with studying, and you have people like me who suck at studying. But generally speaking, you're going to need to study at least 125 to 150 hours. 125 to 150 hours. And also get yourself in some type of an accountability group. Some type of accountability group, study group. I'm running one right now. But you don't have to attend mine. You can start your own accountability group. The beautiful thing about an accountability group and studying is you're more likely to read if you know there's somebody who's going to ask you, did you finish your reading this week? Right? Did you finish your reading this week? So, matter of fact, I've got a couple people that I got to check up with this week when we have our study group here in just a few minutes. Actually, it's in 30 minutes, right? So there are some prep classes you can take. If you take the DD 101, that's the best practices for telecommunications distribution design. That's offered online by Bixby. The DD 102, right? That's the applied best practices for telecom distribution design. Those 2 are considered prep courses for the RCDD exam. So Ed says the thing I don't like about tests are they are word games they create in the questions. You know, that's a great point, Ed. Great point. As a person who writes tests, I understand how difficult it is to write a test. And some people think it's easy, but I'm telling you right now, it's not easy because everybody's brain thinks differently. I might write a question that is blatantly clear to me, but I might give it to Ed, and Ed might read it and go, well, it could be this, or it could be that, or it could be this. And Ed may be correct in his statement because we all approach and process information differently. So I don't really think most people who create tests are creating them to be word games. I think most people are just trying to reinforce a concept, but just because of the fact that we all change it differently, or think process information differently, it may come off as a word game. Think Fiber is in the house. Hello, Think Fiber. Glad you joined us, man. Oh, and don't be afraid to argue questions. Absolutely. That's great advice. When you take your test, if you think that the question is worded poorly or there might be something going on with it, you can contest that question. I did that on mine. Right? So what are some of the, next question, what are some of the things that are some of the topics that are covered on the RCDD exam? What are some of the topics that are covered on the RCDD exam? Well, here, let's pull up a few of them, right? Boom, pull up this list. Ding. So the exam is broken into 4 major groups. 4 major groups. The first one is, and it represents about 10% of the exam, and that's going to be defining the scope of the ICT. And that's the first one. The next one, and this is the biggest section, representing 66%, designing the actual ICT cable plant. Yeah, designing it. So 66% is designing it. 10% is defining the scope. 9% is supporting the bid process, and 15% is the actual installation process. You total those all up, and it equals out to 100%. 100%. I got this information from the RCDD handbook, version V14. Yeah, version V14. If you want to be able to find that information, I will change the QR code on the screen on the live stream. So now that QR code will take you directly to that RCDD handbook, version 14. I'll leave that up for a little while, so that way you can find that information, because it's a great amount of information for you. It really is. It talks about the 5 major steps in applying for your exam. Maybe I'm going to do a show basically on that book. I'll use that book as my outline. How, who should get the RCDD? What are the 5 steps? What you got to go through each one of them. What happens if you don't pass? What if you have to recertify? Right? I don't have to do a show on that. Oh, I really will. Right? Somebody says he argued 35 questions on theirs. Wow, that's a lot of questions to argue. Next question I got was, how much does the RCD certification cost? So that depends whether you're a BIXI member or not a BIXI member. And if you are a BIXI member, it's going to cost you, the application fee is going to cost you $510. $510. If you're not a BIXI member, it's going to cost you $725. So what else covered in that exam? That fee. That fee covers the processing of the exam, your first attempt, right? And the testing location like Pearson VUE, right? It does not cover the study materials or the prep classes. Those are in addition to that $510 or the $725. If you have to take the test over again, it's going to cost you $230 as a BIXI member and $355 as a non-BIXI member. So it's money. It's going to cost you money, but you know what? It's worth it. It is absolutely worth it, because you're going to be making more money. I got a raise almost immediately after I got my RCDD, right? So next question I got about the RCDD is, what are some of the benefits of obtaining my RCDD? Well, number one, recognition. Recognition. People know that that's not an easy certification to get. And once you get it, you're recognized as a professional in the ICT industry. That might also help you when you're doing bid responses and stuff like that. All right, so it helps you. And if you work for a large company, you might make more money. That might give you a raise. They might give you a raise. So there you go. What is the passing score? This last question. What is the passing score on the RCDD test? And guess what? There is none. The BIXI will not share what a passing score is on that RCDD. There is a panel, and that panel comprises of people from the ICT industry. And those panel members are all RCDD credentialed volunteers. And what they do is they use a systematic evaluation. So the panel thoroughly evaluates the test to ensure that it aligns with the needs of the ICT industry, right? And then that panel debates on the knowledge that's going to be needed to excel in that industry. And then it defines the specific level of knowledge required to be successful in the ICT industry. That sounds like, I know, it sounds kind of wishy-washy, but they use what's called the Angoff method. So the Angoff method is a certification that a lot of certifications use in order to get people to say, here's what you need to pass to get the certification. So it's not just BIXI saying, they follow the Angoff method. So there is no, 80% is a pass, 80% is a fail. There is none of that. It's all based on that. But it is absolutely worth it. He says he's worth it. Shotzi's in the study group that's going to be, I'll see you in just a few minutes there, Mr. Shotzi. Yes. So let me see here. Bring up some other comments. I remember the hot melt and the figure eights. Yes, I hated the hot melts. I used to burn my fingers on them all the time. Oh, somebody told me what the C was. It stood for committee. Thank you, Julius. I appreciate that. The Joint Apprenticeship and Training Committee. So there you go. Oh, John was in one of my previous study groups. He says, also check the Association of Building Contractors. I did not know that. I did not know that. There you go. And Shooter says, hit the help button to help Chuck. Yes, please do. Please do. So there you go. All right. Oh, one more thing here. Let me see what this says. I love answering your questions on Instagram, on LinkedIn every day. Thank you. I appreciate that, Shooter. I love doing those. Absolutely. Because they really help people move further on this industry. So there you go. So we are at our 30-minute mark, actually 5 minutes past. So next week, we're doing another live stream, Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. if you want me to do a show on a particular subject, shoot me an email. Shoot me a message, a DM on one of the social media platforms. Say, Chuck, do a show about this, and I'll do it. Ed, did you see the question? Somebody's asking a question about cameras in the TikTok feed earlier. I didn't quite see what the question was. So until next time, everybody, remember,